Yes, I'm not a politician. I'm a leader of a political party. There is a difference between politicians and leaders.
Dr. Panduleni Itula is the leader and president of IPC, the biggest threat to the Swapo party, a party which is the main opposition party in Namibia. He claims that he won the elections in 2019.
I'm absolutely convinced that the elections of that Congress was rigged, and a lot of people knew about it. And that's when I was living in the United Kingdom, I had a big house with 5 bedrooms and a big yard. In fact, 2 tennis courts or 3 tennis courts.
Wow.
And we had upstairs and downstairs. They just need food, they need water, they need to have a job to feed their families. They are not lazy. They need infrastructure so that they can trade. They need just a matara where they can sell their things. I'll still stay in Katutura until our young people have got a way of making ends meet. What is it that you would be doing differently? If you don't understand the needs of the people, it doesn't matter what policies you bring about. Policies must be based on the needs of the people. We consulted with some senior members of Swapo even. They said, no, let him stand. And I said on one condition.
Mr. President, you win in 2024. What are the 5 things you're focusing on?
I'm so mad, so I'm making a difference. I'm so mad, so I'm changing the sequence. I'm so mad, yeah, so I'm making a difference.
Welcome everybody. We get the opportunity today to speak to Dr. Panduleni Filemon Bango Itula, and he's going to be the next president of Namibia. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
I'm very excited to have you here.
Thank you.
Yeah, so a lot has happened since 2019, but allow me to take you back to 1979, where you get arrested at the Swapo headquarters and you get detained and tortured. How was that experience?
Well, I think at that time, it was quite daunting. We finished academic school, secondary school in 1978, and I was offered a job to go and work at Oranienmund. We had interviews and all my colleagues went, but I couldn't feel to convince myself to go and assist in the exploitation of our own natural resources. Now, the thought processes at that time may have been rudimentary, but they were significant in shaping me and shaping my attitude towards our people and our wealth as well. And the only option that I could think about is go and work at the Swapo headquarters. So I approached Axel Johannes, who was then the chief administrator, having been elected in 1976. And he was the chief administrator at the Swapo of Namibia headquarters. And that's not the Swapo party. This is the headquarters of the liberation movement, which is different from the political party. And at that time, we already had Resolution 385 of 1976 in preparation for elections in Namibia, except there was a little bit of a problem in respect of whether South Africans wanted to have their military bases stationed where everybody was coming. They wanted to have them in Grootfontein. And Swapo argued that they should just go home, have them in Noord or wherever. And that was the tricky part of it. And then Resolution 385 was later on converted into Resolution 435. And at that time, we now were preparing to advance to elections. And that's why the Swapo party was allowed at that time, Swapo of Namibia was allowed at that time to have an administrative headquarters just on the 4th floor opposite the post office, where we had Daniel Chongarero, Clabanello, Lucia Mtenya, and also Reverend Chirimwe and Reverend Carrera and the youth officers in that building as well. And it was at the beginning of, or rather at the end towards at the beginning of 79, that everything started really going wrong. We knew that there were going to be arrests because most of the police were working with us as well to inform us what is taking place. And then all our leaders started being arrested. Initially, when you get arrested, you go to prison, etc., to court, etc. But there was an argument about Namibians cannot be arrested and taken to South Africa. Robben Island was a foreign country, and given that back in 1967 already, the Namibian situation was adopted by the United Nations that South Africa was illegal in Namibia. Therefore, Namibians could not be imprisoned in a foreign country. So the South Africans felt that it was no longer necessary to take people to court. It was then arrest without any warrant or anything like that, and also imprisonment without any trial. So the AG 26 of 1978 was operated from within Namibia, where people who are suspected from political violence could be arrested. And the intention was to clean up all the leaders of the party. And there were 86 of us arrested from across the country, from Oranienburg all the way to Rakana. And I've got all these people in my mind, and I know them all. Yeah. And in Hobabes, I was initially arrested and then taken. My first arrest actually took place in Uis, when we organized the student strike there. And then the next arrest was at the Swapo headquarters, Swapo of Namibia headquarters. And the person who arrested me is still in Namibia as a politician, and we meet, and we still have got that human face of, yes, that was the struggle then, now we have to build Namibia. But I spent 57 days in solitary confinement in cell 5 in the prison in town, and occasionally you'll be taken out to Auspanplatz, where you will be tortured. And we were working with freedom fighters at that time, transporting weaponry from Tsumeb to Windhoek, and also assisting various of these freedom fighters. But at the time, it was also necessary to assist the liberation struggle by transporting people out of the country. And we transported quite a lot of people out of the country. And many of my erstwhile comrades such as August Gaib is still present, still here, but many of them have departed. Many of our people that we've transported from Namibia, especially central Namibia, to Botswana to go and join the liberation struggle, armed struggle, many of them unfortunately has not come back at all. Many of them languished in the Lumbango dungeons for being very revolutionary at times, and it's a scar that is still on the Namibian face that has not been addressed at all by the liberation movement itself. And I think it's time that they come to terms with that and to say there was wrongdoing. You know, we cannot bring back the lives of those people. We still have got people who've got psychological scars as a result of that, and also people who've got physical scars as well. But when the arrest came then, going to prison in Hobabes, it was quite daunting. I was only 19 at that time, and I was among 3 youngest amongst the 86. The oldest was later Tem Quilongo, who at that time, I think he was 57. Axel Johannes was 33, and so was late Steve Holliard from Beseva, who we buried earlier this year as well. He was in that area of 33. The late Marco Hausiko was about 27, and we were very young at that time. But what was actually interesting at that time is the unity that we had there. We were arrested from every single tribal groupings in this country. From Zambezi, we had the Lona Chakas, we had Marco Hausiko from the Kavangos, the Northern, and also from Oranienburg, we had John Shaitonodi, we had Yona Itula, we had Melangton Kaukungwa from that side, and we had Ezekiel Uira from Franz Fontaine and Hans Boys from Corijas as well. And we had Laurentian Sebastian Davids from Gibeon, and we had Flermes from Keetmanshoop, and Steve Holliard and Jonathan Holliard from Keetmanshoop and Berseba as well. We had Heward Biekes from Windhoek and Rehoboth as well. And we had Kotsimang from Hobabes, and we had Kamehodu from Grootfontein, Dr. Ihuwa from Windhoek as well. So we had all these people together. And many of those people had their families, they had businesses, they had their professions. I was young, I only worked for the Swapo office. So there was mind-eroding worries in these elders or older people to us about how well their families are and how their businesses were doing. We were imprisoned without trial, and the statement in the arrest warrant was, until I order his release, meaning I, first person singular, the Administrator General. And I remember when the Administrator General announced that he was going to leave Namibia to replace by another one, we went on a hunger strike. And we said, no, the arrest warrant says until I order his release, meaning the Administrator General in their person. So we went on hunger strike, and of course, as is the case, prison was another university. We learned quite a lot. We even smuggled in a radio with batteries in a loaf of bread.
So, Mr. President,
you know,
so how
it
would
was
you
done.
say? So, sorry to cut you. So, how would you say that that experience shaped who you are today?
I think when you go into a situation where you've got a conviction why you are in there, you feel the pain of being in there, but you also have got the pleasure of the conviction that you are doing the right thing. And you are not doing it for yourself. People did not get arrested so that they can project themselves as former political prisoners and needing to be paid. I know there is veterans that needs to be paid, etc. But when we went there knowingly that we will be able to sacrifice our youth, just as many people left this country as well. So it was not a situation to say I need to be paid or something like that. But what came there is the consolidation of the convictions. I remember being in prison and reading a little piece in Jacobs which says that don't worry what they are doing to you. What they are doing is to test how strong is your conviction? And I said, my conviction in the liberation struggle is pretty strong. And that is what kept us going. We had a supporting team. And of course, in a situation where you've got 86 people going around locked in one room. We were 26 in one room with one single toilet, which didn't have a door. It's just the pot there. And our dignity was completely destroyed. You know, I was amongst older people, and being from an African culture, you will know that you will not sit alongside elders when they are relieving themselves.
True.
But we were sleeping on the floor with little mats, and the mats and blankets were full of lice, and we are scratching ourselves all the time. And the elderly were waking up in pain, etc. And you'll always get an encouragement coming from those. We'll be playing cards here, but at the same time respecting the dignity of others as well. But it's just absolutely tremendously very devastating.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people had their dignity stripped off in prison because, you know, with a toilet open there, everybody else is there. There's nothing at all. So the South Africans really had tactics of psychological torture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So fast forward to 2019, you decide to contest as an independent. And history is made in Namibia, where it's the first time the Swapo party has declined from about 80 or to 87% down to 56%. And you get 30% of the vote. How did we get here? So what made you to decide to contest as an independent? And how were you, if you had won, how were you going to get the control of parliament so that you can implement the changes that you were promising the people?
The first thing that we need to understand is this, that when we came out of prison, there was nothing else we could do because we came under house arrest. And the house arrest said that you will not be in the presence of more than 5 people. You are not allowed to leave the house between 6 and 8 o'clock in the morning. You are not allowed to visit town without permission. You were not allowed to receive any visitors without any permission or to leave the municipal area without any permission. And it's during that time that Bishop Kauluma, the then Bishop of Namibia, of the Anglican Church, said, these people are in danger of being eliminated by the South Africans. So it was Axel Johannes, Lucia Mtenya, myself, Tatem Kwilongo, and John Hamtuma. And we were sent outside by the church to go and study as clergy. And obviously, this was the disguise that was put there. And I went to stay with Bishop Colin Winder in London, and I went also to work with the office of Swapo of Namibia in London under the leadership of Shapaka Kungwa, who was actually my mentor. I went to Oxford, and for the first time, it was actually on the wedding day of Honorable Speaker of Parliament, Peter Kachavivi, and he was my mentor, telling me which meetings I can address, which meetings I cannot go, which people I associate. So he shaped me at that time. And after 33 years, when Namibia got independent, I was in the middle of my studies, and I decided I'll carry on studying. I consulted with the leadership, and you just carry on studying. So I studied as a dental technician, as a dentist, and then I did my fellowships of the Royal College of Surgeons of Edinburgh and Royal College of Surgeons and Physicians of Glasgow, and then law, master's degree in law, and all sorts of others. I've got 11 qualifications. And then I decided at that time, it's now time to go home. I'm fully armed. As one elder said, said, Dr. Itula, are you fully armed to come back to Namibia? I said, what do you mean by that? Do you know law? And I said, no. Well, you better stay there a little bit more and study law. So when I came back here, I came back to the country for which so many people sacrificed. And I wanted to look and find that Namibia. And what I did from about January, I came back on 13th of December 2013. And I came back straight to Katutura in the house where I used to be as a house arrest prisoner. And I decided to go around Namibia, to tour this country, to find the Namibia for which we fought. And I traveled single, alone, with no music at all, just my thoughts. And I traveled in the northwest up to Etanga, came around to Epupa or Chimuhaka, came to the north. Before independence, I did not travel a lot in the north. I was born in Windhoek, grown up in Windhoek, so I knew very little about the north except up to Tsumeb. And I was able to discover the Oka House or Wakanas and Launa Fidis, etc., and traveled to Kavango and Katima. And I went to Katima particularly because I wanted to go and see the place where one of my comrades, Charles Sihani, was from. You know, he was a very close comrade of mine at that time, and he died in the dungeons as well. And I went down there, met the parents as well, and I had the picture of his in the first time they saw that picture. Yeah. And of course, tears dripped, etc. And I traveled the whole country until down south in the Orange River, Aroab, and I was looking for that Namibia. I did not see it. I saw poverty, I saw hunger, thirst, unemployment, lack of infrastructure to health facilities, lack of infrastructure to economics, lack of communication. And I was in Kasika village, just 10 kilos from Impalila Island, when a young lady told me I was highly pregnant and we had no transport. And I had to be put in a wheelbarrow, 10 kilos to the clinic. And I lost the baby on the way. Another story was a young man who broke a leg while he was climbing a tree. And there was no transport. It's 3 hours from Kasika village. And Kasika village is where Greenwell Matongo was born. So they had to transport this young man to Katima. And when he arrived there, he lost so much blood and he died. So this was the pains that I discovered. And I said, where is the Namibia that we fought for? I couldn't find it. I sat down and I said, what other ways could there be? And then after the 2017 Swapo Party Congress, I realized that this is not the Namibia that we fought for. I'm absolutely convinced that the elections of that Congress was rigged, and a lot of people knew about it. And that's why I was prepared to assist those who wanted to contest it in court, to provide them with a know-how of how to do that, and even went all the way to Durban to speak to lawyers, etc., and came back as well. Now, after that, I wrote a document called the Independent Presidential Candidate. And I didn't write it for myself. I wrote it for the people that I thought they were entitled. And then I went to one senior party leader and I said, look, you people have been cheated in this Congress. Here is another route up to the top. I spent 5 hours talking to this elder to say, you can stand as an independent presidential
candidate. Are you at
candidate.
liberty to share who it was, which elder it was?
Not at this stage, unfortunately, because I didn't ask their permission as yet.
Okay.
It's not good to speak about somebody in the public without having actually informed them, because you went there in confidence, and you cannot reveal what is discussed in confidence, except the general feature of it is. It's principles that guides me, and those principles cannot be broken for whatever reasons, especially not if they are going to be benefiting me and or not benefiting the person that we are referring to. And then we spent 5 hours talking then, and we had many cups of teas. And at 1 o'clock, I realized that this is not going to work, not with him or with her. So I then went to the second one. The second one, it was 30 minutes. Said, no, brother, don't do that. Don't do that. It will not work. It was not me. And then I went to the third one who said, why don't you stand? I said, no, not me. I thought that, you are the elders. Why can't you go? And then he said, no. And at that time at the Congress, I was assisting one of them, Helmut Angula, to become the vice president, and I managed to do exactly the task that I was given to organize his trips around this country. And if anything, amongst all the candidates, he's the only one who traveled to 12 of the 14 regions trying to campaign. And I don't understand how he got 21 or 19 out of that elections at all. And that's why it's just not on. And that's why later on I asked the Secretary General who emerged then to give me all the ballot papers so that I can examine the cross to see whether it was made by the same pen and by the same person. Nonetheless, the third person then said, "Why don't you stand?" And I said, "What, me? No." And I said, "Yes, please, stand. You were a youth leader of the liberation struggle. You were in prison. What credentials do you need?" You know, and I didn't quite understand why credentials. So I said, "Okay, fine. I'll think about it. I'll come back in 2 weeks' time." I said, "What? Stand as an independent presidential candidate for Namibia, eventually to be elected to become the servant of the people up there?" The thought was not settled. And then we met again and said, "Yeah." We consulted with some senior members of Swapo even. They said, "No, let him stand." And I said, "On one condition, I'll do it alone. No one should be involved." And I sat down to plan now, how do I go about it? I then examined the provisions of the Electoral Act. I examined the provisions of the Namibian Constitution, particularly Article 17, which says that all citizens, all persons shall have the right to participate in political activities to influence the composition and policies of government. And it says that all citizens shall have the right, all persons shall have the right to form and join political parties, and subject to the fulfillment of requirement as is required in a democratic society, to participate in the conduct of public affairs, whether directly or through freely chosen representative. So whether directly, that gives me the right. And then Article 28, sub-Article 3 says that every citizen of 35 years shall have the right to contest for the presidency of Namibia, irrespective whether you belong to a political party. Yes. That political party cannot have any rules and regulations that prohibits you from exercising your constitutional right, because the political party's constitution and rules shall be subservient to the Namibian constitution. So I had my framework, legal framework in place. Now what was required is for me to collect 500 signatures from each of the 14 regions. And I thought, how do you do that? So my nieces came around and said, "Uncle, we'll try it out for you." Okay, fine. I got the forms from the ECN, and then we went around. Commerce first, 500. And then Omaheke, 500. We had the cushion of 50 as well. And then I said, wow, it's working. So I went around, and what I did is establish what I call commandos in every region to be the ones that will carry on. Now, some of these people, I didn't even know them. Some of them, I just came to speak to them. And I think it's something to do with how easy people find it to speak to me and to tell me their stories. And I think I discovered it when I was discovering Namibia as I traveled around. And it was about October the 9th that we've submitted everything to the ECN, and they said, you satisfied 7 regions, but the other 7, especially Kunene, you still owe us 430. And I said, how do you do that in four days? And we have now to be able to submit everything on the 16th of October, which was a Wednesday.
Wow.
And if we miss the 2 o'clock deadline, that's it. So I shut my practice, which just next door, and I took the 4 young ladies that were working for me, and I said, fine, we will no longer be working as dentistry. We will now go over to the collection of this. So we left from here to Kunene, left 1 in Ocho, went to Corijas, picked up 4 people on the way, left them in Corijas, and then the others in Fransfontein went down, and then I told my commandos in the areas that were not satisfied to put everything together. This was on a Friday. And then Saturday, I was in Opo, collected everything else. Sunday, I came back, and Monday, we drove from Ucho all the way to Keetmanshoop, collected the signatures. In the meantime, we are checking with all my commandos that they are also collecting those who were deficient. And eventually, at 2 o'clock on the Monday, the 15th, the Tuesday, the 15th, I said, ceasefire, enemy is down, we've got it all.
Wow.
And that was the first joy. So we called the whole country around in the commanders. I said, we are fine. Are you sure about this? Yes, we are fine.
Wow.
So we came back to Windhoek and arrived here at 9 o'clock. And then the next day, we went to the ECN with our documents and everything else submitted. And the technical part said, yes, you qualify. So that was that journey.
Yeah. So I saw a video of you encouraging people to vote for Swapo for parliamentary seats and vote for you for presidential seats. How was that going to work?
Well, the thing is that first of all, I've never had a membership card of Swapo party. That is the party where the symbol is the little man with a fist up. My membership card was Swapo of Namibia and still was that, which has got the flame. Now, these are two different organizations.
Okay.
And therefore, it was assumed at that time that I was a member of Swapo. Okay. Because in the Swapo party constitution, there isn't any transitional clause which says that members of Swapo of Namibia shall, in the new constitution of Namibia, automatically be members of Swapo party.
Okay.
I had a dilemma. However, notwithstanding that dilemma and the assumption that I belong to Swapo party, I encourage people to vote for Swapo party and to vote for me at that time in 2019, because what was wrong, it was not the people, it was not the principles of solidarity, freedom, and justice. It was the leadership that was not following the principles, the original principles of what we had as a party in terms of what we needed to do for our people.
So today, would you still encourage people to vote for Swapo in the parliament?
No, most unlikely. Not at all. Because I've got an obligation now to the political party that I'm leading and to the people that I have convinced that there is a need for a new change in this country, a new second republic, as it were, where people are not related, joining the political party because of who you know or who you were, or whether you were a political prisoner, but you joined this political party as a member. And that's why in 2019, it was then right at that time to say, you know, whatever you do, exercise your right as a citizen. But what I want for us to change the leadership is for you to vote for the independent presidential candidate, Panduleni Itula, at that time. And the song will be different here because I've got an obligation as leader, entrusted with the duty to ensure that I lead our people towards the new dispensation of how we seek to govern Namibia. So that time, it was necessary at that time. And of course, I didn't have an infrastructure. I didn't have any people or anything like that. The youth came out in their hundreds and thousands to follow with that adrenaline pumping the new change that we envisage. You know, I had to write the independent candidates manifesto. I had to devise even how we are going to campaign, and thank God I've actually traveled the country. I knew the distances, and we also had to put up billboards, etc. There was no money, and people just came in and said, who's taking this? And what we did is that I decided to take only one attire, what I'm wearing, to make sure no one, you've never seen me wearing a cap or changing or anything like that. I decided to present a simple picture, a simple image.
So I recently traveled to the north. I went to Oshakati or Ngadiva or Dengwa, and I was speaking to the population, to the citizens of Namibia, asking them about you and whether they would vote for you. I struggled to find one person who had anything bad to say about you, which was surprising. Only when I came back to Windhoek did I find one person who didn't trust you because he felt that after the 2019 elections, you went quiet. I'm going to show you a video in about a minute, but I'd like you to respond to a person who thinks that you went quiet after 2019. Then I'll show you the videos of the others, just a few of the others that I managed to record in the parts of the country.
Yeah. I think what happened in 2019, after obviously the elections came about, before even election, I went to the magistrates court to say that there was something wrong with the manner in which we are conducting the elections. According to the Electoral Act, the elections shall be conducted with electronic voting machine simultaneously with voter verification papers.
Yes.
Now, this is where the element of separation of power came into being, where Parliament, the legislator, decided that we will have electronic voting machines, and those electronic voting machines can only be used if there is concomitant use of verification papers, voters verification papers. So every time you press the button to vote for somebody, you don't have any evidence whatsoever that you voted for that candidate.
Person, yeah.
And knowing all this electronic equipment, you can divert them, the gate theory. You vote up to 50 here, and then any vote coming will get diverted to the next one. And we went to court, of course, and the magistrate court just said that I've got no jurisdiction to preside over this case. And then we went to the High Court on the eve of election, because the law requires us to make a judgment before the elections. And it was actually 10 minutes past 12 when the judges came back and said, well, we dismissed the case on grounds that the case was not properly presented, whether it was an appeal or whether it was a review. And then in 2019, then the elections was declared. And the elections gave His Excellency Dr. Hake Gottfried Kenkop, our current president, 464,703 votes. And they gave me 242,657 votes. Now, 7,000 of my votes from Windhoek Rural were allocated to the candidate for UDF up to now, and I've questioned that with the ECN. They admit rigging the elections. Those 7,000 votes are still gazetted with the other candidate and not with me. Now, given that we voted electronically, there couldn't be any other way that these votes could have been allocated as such. So my share of the vote that I was accorded was 30 and then 56. Now then, after those elections, I needed to go to court to convince the Namibian people that electronic voting machines without paper trail is not a constitutional principle. The court pronounced itself to say, yes, it was unconstitutional, but the outcome, because of public interest, shall be constitutional. The baby is born, but there's no mother, but the baby still exists. So now I needed to think very carefully, where to now? I brought out all these people from the comfort of their political parties. What is it that I need to do? Now, for anybody to say that, and they've never met me, I believe, I went quiet without coming and asking, what are you doing? Then it's quite a dangerous thing to subjectively make a decision as about your future and future leader on grounds of the person has gone quiet and you did not inquire why. What was necessary at that time is this, that people came to me and said, Dr. Itula, you've taken out of our comfort zone. We need to form a political party. I said, what? A political party? No, we can't form a political party. Then 5 of us came together, not physically. One was Commander Kangulu in Walvis Bay. We had Commander Nashinge in Windhoek, myself, Commander Tapopi up in the north, and Commander Lamini up in Ondangwa as well. And we were communicating with WhatsApp. And another one, of course, that I don't reveal his name as yet because he's still operating undercover. So we came together and said, if we are going to form a political party, what shall we call this political party? What are the colors? What are the slogans? What are we going to do? So we were able, through that period of time then, to come together. And then after about 4 months, we were now formulating everything. I spent 4 months drafting the constitution and having actually spent a lot of time examining the constitutions of all the other political parties to see what's wrong. So that is why I went quiet.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm going to show you a video.
Yeah.
ndio tenga kucha mutu omnungu teke tulera na washashi yo hea katika chikwana yenoe problem ada kwa chikwana okutu ukite.
I have a feeling he will bring a lot of changes in the movie.
And I think he can make a difference in the country.
What I think about Dr. Itula, he is a great leader.
Chashina tariko omungeri ke memberewa amweni ke rike memberewa mara nanda kwa chwa nota popi ke nike se ubi sa tu popi tu ndi ko mara he kapwa fike kapena ndo ta popi kacho to harande sho to kaparo mungu ya akwa chwa na ta popi de o problema akwa chwa ta solve.
Actually, I will vote for him. This coming elections, I will vote for him.
Yes, I would vote for Dr. Itula.
So I would ask him what would he have done differently comparing to all the other politicians, and what would make him so special and unique comparing to all the other politicians. And also focusing on our current challenges that we're facing right now, yes, in terms of the recession, in terms of the pandemic we went through, we're going through another economic recession. Would he be different from any other politician in terms of making promises and living up to them, and not just talk about change, but actually be the change?
So that ondaro kumpura kucha otohara nana ututurire erero yo posta fura stoka karana se shwara ngengo waka monerero mumake uhengi ngengo tukugura otoka karana se ngini utwara kukinerero yo nde shito tupe toturompere topia mukura kucho toka karana se utwara ukakarena se na to harike toturompere nde shaike tukugura tokutura posta fura ngwe tupira mena hacho kwara haro nuko vitafane naye mara mbuyo tote kakucha onuko mokati kanu onu hapikine so nuto popi mutu teke erero teke yendita na wai.
First and foremost, I think one of our biggest challenges is our health services. If you look at how we've been challenged, look at Katutura Hospital, the condition. I mean, the government's putting up buildings left, right, and center, and the buildings that actually needs the attention, there's no budget for it. So I would say focus point would be health service within the country. Because I've heard a lot of people dying, and they cannot verify what these people's conditions are because the facilities are not available, it's not clean, the doctors are not available, you know, there's just shortages everywhere when it comes to Katutura Hospital, and especially hygiene, which is priority number one. So health services would be priority number one for me.
If you get it, so just look after the youth because we are in terrible danger.
Will he be able to provide for the unemployment jobs in Namibia?
So in the video that we just watched, there were a couple of questions that were asked. The first one being, if you had won, what were you going to do differently? And the second question, what type of leader were you going to be? Then there was a statement on unemployment and the youth. So do you want to just talk about that?
I think listening to that video was really, really painful. You could effectively see the pain pouring out of those people as they are relating their concerns about their experience of the past 33 years. And that is the origin of those questions. What would you have done differently from what they have been doing all the time?
Yeah.
And at the same time as well, the increasing youth unemployment is of very, very concern to a lot of people. Now, before I come to the answer of these questions, since 2020, 16th of December, we went to over 130 government institutions to establish exactly how they function, on what is their problems. And we went to I traveled to over 300 villages in this country to be able to understand the needs and demands of our people. I've gone to every little village that I could think about in the regions in the north and in the regions of the Chodonjupa. Yesterday, I was in the south in Berseba, where I had a long meeting of 4 hours with the traditional leaders of southern people. And the pains that I'm experiencing there is absolutely unbearable. The suffering of the youth is unbearable. When I was in Kavango, one of the traditional leaders said one lady came there and fell down because of hunger. So the things that I have seen there are extremely painful. And the reason why I went to the people is to find out what is it that the people need before we get ideas about what policies we put together to be responsive to the needs of the people. It is very, very difficult, and one need to honor the trust people put in you. That weight that I hear from that video is a weight over my shoulders, but that's not something that I can bear alone. I'll need to be able to put together a collective leadership, which is basically the backbone of IPC ever since our formation, to make sure that the decisions of the party are not decisions of Itula. The public will be misled. Yes, I'm not a politician. I'm a leader of a political party. There is a difference between politicians and leaders. Politicians have got self-interest. Leaders have got the interest of the people. And the only way I could find what the interest of the people would be is to go to the people. And recently, I've asked our leader of the youth to go to the youth because he can relate to them. I can relate to them in my past, but he just finished 7 regions listening and talking to the youth, going into my footsteps. The policies that an IPC government is going to implement are not policies coming from the leadership, are policies that will be cooked in the village. It is in the villages that our people are. It's in the villages that our people are coming to the squalid conditions of informal settlements in search for work. One has to understand that and understand the pain of the people by being with the people. When I went down to Epembe, the people, I was thirsty and I said, could you give me water? They gave me water that looked like ginger. And I drank and it was stinking. And I asked, where is the water coming from? And I went down to the pond where the water was coming from. And they showed me the pond with the water in, just for a dog to come and pee in the water and swim in the water and come out, just to tell me, this is my shower place. This is the real objective realities that the people of this country are suffering through. I worked out that we will need at least 1,500 boreholes to provide people with clean water. When I was in Oshikunde not long time ago, I was assisting an elderman putting cans of water onto a donkey to transport it 15 kilos where he lived. And I estimated that we probably need 1.5 million length of water pipes to provide water to all our people. In the south of this country, the roads are terrible and you are not able to actually navigate easily. And if you get somebody in Arab, for example, who's about to deliver a baby and that baby gets stuck, you've got 3 hours on a 4x4 to go to Swapo. This is the real Namibia that for the past 33 years, people are experiencing. Many of our young people that have left university are on the streets with their degrees, some of them 3, 4, 5, that they have not been able to find a job. Now, what is it that you would be doing differently? If you don't understand the needs of the people, it doesn't matter what policies you bring about. Policies must be based on the needs of the people. And in order to create an environment in which opportunities can be created, you need to be able to think very carefully. You need to think about the fiscal policy of the government. You need to think about the monetary policy of the government. These policies need to work together. Starting with the tax regime that we have in this country, we've got 32% of the tax regime. I know our young people don't want to hear about that. But what is critically important is how do you create jobs unless you can create a situation where foreign direct investment can come into the country. People can only come to invest in Namibia and to create jobs if they are more likely than not to make a profit. At the moment, you've got the tax regime, corporate tax at 32. Now, anybody who wants to come and invest in this country, want to invest, and if you can gradually, this is what we will do, gradually reduce the corporate tax, you will encourage foreign direct investments to come into Namibia. You will encourage people that are already running businesses here to say that my profit margin has now increased. I can expand my business and employ more people. The more jobs that can be created through a tax incentive that has been reduced on this side, the more young people will be able to get off the street into employment, and the more money that you put in the pockets of our people. If we can get every household one job, we will be addressing poverty and hunger. And if we can get that money in and we consider your GDP, the consumer aspect of our GDP will go up. We will be able as a government to put money in our revenue coffers by taxing, by pay as you earn, the VAT, and we'll be able to put all this money that we are creating in investing in the backbone of every country's economy, agriculture. We are importing 65% from South Africa, others from India and China, especially pharmaceuticals in China, in India. And 80% of our fruits and vegetables come from South Africa. And you need to think about if our imports are up here and our exports are here, what is our revenue? We've got nothing. And every time we are basically pocket mouth. So what we need to create, first of all, is an incentive for foreign direct investment to come into Namibia and to encourage our own people to create opportunities for them to actually develop their entrepreneurial skills. We need to put aside some money, 2 billion, to encourage young people who've got, young people these days are not like we were in the 70s. You've got WhatsApp, you follow just gadgets, you know what is the world thing. You've got brilliant initiatives and ideas, but you don't have a government that is supporting you to set up business. Our population is small, but we've got the purchasing power. If we concentrate on reducing the tax, encouraging young people to go into entrepreneurship, supporting them financially to do so, and to be able to encourage people to come to Namibia and to invest in Namibia, we will be able to increase our revenue and we'll be able to provide for social services, for our hospitals, for our education. We need to look at what we are doing in our education. Are we giving our people the necessary skills that will allow them to work in this environment? Today, 44 Namibians who studied as paramedics are working with the London ambulance system in the United Kingdom in London. We could not employ them here, but we trained them here. We are training people for foreign markets. Those that are able to go out, supported by their parents, are doing so. There is a brain drain in this country. In order to develop this country, we need to really think very carefully how our fiscal policy and our monetary policy is working together to be able to control our economy. Now, if we are not investing in the proper education of our people, investing in agriculture, and also reforming our laws, we will really be in trouble. Health is critical. You cannot run a country's economy without a health workforce. But that health workforce needs to understand that the labor rules and regulations in this country are extremely stringent, that foreign direct investments and companies cannot work under them. We need to review that and to look at how can a win-win situation be developed within the work environment. The businesses, the trade unions, and the government has to come together and understand how they can work together to create jobs and to create an economy that is sustainable. One of the biggest things that we need to take out of this country is poverty and hunger. But we cannot do that if we cannot feed the people, and we can't feed the people if we can't provide them with jobs. If we can get a job per household, we would have advanced well in reducing poverty.
Mr. President, you have sent out people to all the provinces and you have heard the voices and the cries of the citizens of Namibia. you win in 2024, what are the 5 things you're focusing on?
The first thing is this, that we've got a completely skewed system in Namibia of democracy. The Western cooked democracy that came to our country completely destroyed the governance framework that we had as indigenous Namibians in this country. The first thing that we need to think about is to create a chamber, a review chamber that contains our traditional leaders, that contains our retired politicians that are carefully selected, that contains the brains that are sitting in the villages now, not contributing, that contains former diplomats, retired health professionals, school teachers, etc., in that review chamber. And then we need to think about how to empower our traditional leaders as well. This winner takes all of democracy is wrong for Namibia. We need to create something called consociation. Consociationalism is where you also empower the minorities, irrespective of whether they have not won the elections. Political parties in this country, when IPC win these elections, will be considered in the cabinet as well, to make sure that the cabinet of the Republic of Namibia is representative of all our people. We've got a problem in this country as well, in that not all Namibians are represented in our parliament because of our constitution. In Article 49, we have got proportional representation. We've got in Schedule 4 proportional representation. Yet, Article 45 says that the members of parliament shall be representative of all the people of Namibia. If you don't belong to a political party and don't participate in the selection of the party lists that go to parliament, you will not be able to be represented there. And at the same time, notwithstanding the presence of your right to participate in political activities, there isn't any independent candidacy to parliament. So we need to change the way that we elect our leaders, even amending the constitution to ensure that the constitution is now speaking to the people of Namibia. One, our traditional leaders should be brought in central government so that they are also participating in the service of the people. Because if you go to a village, the headman in that village knows how many people are blind in that village, how many people are disabled, how many people are poor, how many people have got chronic diseases. Now, if we can channel by decentralization some of these social grants and social services into the traditional line, will be able to reach every citizen. And I've seen that through my tours. I'm not talking about an idea that I'm imposing on the people. It is coming from the people like, I'm the chief, but my people, I went to the kingdom of Bunza. And His Royal Highness is saying that the people come to the kingdom looking for food, and I've got nothing, because I'm not considered in government. But if we can take these people who are in contact with the people and bring them to decision-making and legislative, giving them opportunities to actually preserve the cultures, giving them opportunities to be the advisors to the president, our president will be better knowledgeable about the needs of our people.
So the one concern with that is that chiefs, traditional leaders, and headsmen, how is accountability and transparency going to work with them? Because,
Yes, you can't put in a system that deals with public funds without putting a system of accountability alongside it. You need to have a probity officer that will be able to see the efficacy and the veracity through which our policies will be implemented in the village itself. So you are not going just to throw money down there. There will be alongside the systems that accounts for how the money has been used, because we are using public money and we cannot release it just like that. But if you look at the money and the manner in which it's distributed these days, it's on partisan line. A councillor will say, which party do you belong, before you get drought relief or anything like that. And that cuts out a lot of people. And as a consequence of that, it is probably wiser to look at a traditional headman who is actually the father of everybody, as it were, or the mother of everybody, responsible for everybody else as well. In the old traditional African way of looking after our people, we actually had an area in the kingdom where people bring, the tax, as it were, And that was used in days of difficulties.
Yeah.
We have lost that. In addition to that, we had governance principles as well. If you look at the customary laws of Namibia and you look at the Western laws that we have been imposed upon our people, at times there is a dichotomy, at times they are fighting each other. There was never an opportunity to harmonize them. What we need to understand is this, that Namibia is a heterogeneous society, either on grounds of segmentation, on religion, tribal, ethnic, region, etc. Now we are trying to think about how do you harmonize the people. If you bring all their leaders into one chamber, we will get Namibia speaking to each other. If you look at the United Kingdom, if you look at England, it's difficult to tell who's a Yorkshire and who's a Cockney and who's a Geordie. They have over years brought about that democracy to have a homogeneous society where decisions can be made to benefit everybody else. If you look at Brazil, 201 years of independence, they had a lot of time to mature that democracy. We are talking about 33 years here.
33.
We are talking about people still in the South thinking that, this is our part of the world, in the North, in the Northeast. How do you harmonize people so that we can actually talk together and take decisions that are supported by everybody else? Of course, there will be people who are minorities, but you need to empower them with something like a veto right, and you need to have proportional a distribution of resources so that all the Namibian people can benefit. Unfortunately, we cannot do anything about demarcating Namibia. The United Nations have done so. So we need to bring people together to be able to have the decisions flowing from the bottom, from the grassroots, up to central government, where the implementation of policies and the services will be coming from. Certain aspect will be centralized. Certain aspect will have to be decentralized, especially those pertaining to social services, especially those pertaining to the needs of the people down on the ground. Our people don't need much. They just need food. They need water. They need to have a job to feed their families. They are not lazy. They need infrastructure so that they can trade. They need just a matara where they can sell their things. The basic things to get the economy going. Economy is not like having a big, huge mine which you tax. Economy comes from all these people trying little bits and pieces. And these are the people that feeds the nation. If we can look after our grassroots people first, then we'll be able to do. If we can look after the youth, there is this tendency of people saying, you are the leaders of tomorrow. That is not in IPC. Our leader of the youth was in Erongo yesterday, talking to people empowered by IPC to be able to go and talk, not with a piece of paper. No, he uses that freedom to see what Namibia do we want in the future, and to be part of that, laying the bricks of that Namibia. So we have got two critical things to do. One, winner takes all. It's not a principle that is going to work for Namibia. We need to involve everybody else in the governance of this country, from the cabinet right down there. Two, we need to bring our traditional leaders to central government, whether it's the traditional leader themselves. I don't like the word traditional leader. It's a very foreign colonial concept. We can just call them our leaders. I don't know why it's traditional, but when you go to the Germans and the English, they don't have traditional leaders. So we'll need to get our leaders from every corner of Namibia into one chamber. We need to get this brilliant brains that have now gone in retirement and not using those brains. In Africa, we say nothing ferments without the peace that was there yesterday. So we need that fermentation to come in as well. As an advisory one down there, advising the president. And we now need to govern the country together. But most importantly, we need to get rid of corruption. Corruption and development are not bedfellows. And what are we going to do to get rid of corruption? First of all, we in our GDP need to reduce our spending. We need to cut our services from 23 cabinet members to 13. Only 13 will be sufficient, and no deputy ministers. And also, we need to take out all these incentives of S&T, housing benefits, etc. We will give our ministers a decent salary. You buy your car, you pay for your house, you travel. But when you travel, you'll travel from a government pool of cars.
Yeah.
You buy your own car and you don't have a deputy minister. We will consolidate everything else to make sure that government spending is down. If you look at the money that we spend per minister per year, it's approximately something like 12 million when you take everything into consideration, including cars and everything else, up to what mileage they can drive in. It's approximately 12 million. Now, that money, if we can just give you one salary, you buy your own car. If you can't drive, sponsor a driver. And if you don't know, take a taxi.
Yeah.
I used to live in the UK and I was traveling with the Minister of Home Affairs in the UK, David Blunkett, on the same train from London to Sheffield, where his constituency was. The other thing that we need to do as well is this, that we need to change parliament so that members of parliament will be constituency members of parliament, so that you are elected in the constituency. If you are not working well, then the public can say, we'll let somebody else. And because there is a right to be elected in the constituency, independent candidate can also stand in the constituency. The same will need to go into local government as well, where we'll carve up Windhoek, for example, into 20 wards to make sure that these people making decisions about everyday's lives in Namibia are accountable to the electorate. At the moment, they are accountable to a political party because they come through a political party list. The same with the ones in parliament as well. And then we'll do away with regional councils.
Yeah.
And that means that a member of parliament will be accountable to a constituency. We have to reduce the constituencies because we've got 121 constituencies and only 104 members of parliament. So Windhoek, which has got 10 constituencies, can be carved up in about 4 or 5. Luanda, that has got a bigger population than we are, we've got only 5 members of parliament from Luanda.
Yeah.
So we can do the same thing in Windhoek as well. We can put Walvis Bay in one constituency, Swakopmund, Hentis Bay, and Arandes becomes one constituency. Because if you think about the distance between Ses, Berseba, and Betania as the Berseba constituency, it's the same distances that you've got 60 kilos from Hentis Bay to Swakopmund and 50 from Arandes to Swakopmund. That can be managed by one member of parliament who, during session, you are in parliament, and after session, you go to your constituency and you use that constituency office to be directly in contact with the people. The people will come to you and present their problem. Yeah. And by doing that, reducing the government, we will then be able to cut down on spending as well, which means that after 2024, electing members of parliament will gradually extract those members of parliament and change the law, amend the laws. We need to amend the constitution, amend the electoral act, amend the local and regional act, amend the traditional authorities act, and make sure that we amend the procurement act as well, to make sure this thing of creating incentives for corruption is not going to be there either. To make them sure that a member of parliament, if they are not doing well, that electorate to whom they are accountable to will be able to get rid of them and get even somebody who doesn't belong to a political party.
Okay, Mr. President, so Namibia is rich in human capital. I wanted to get a list for you for some of the Namibians who are working for Google, contributing for Microsoft, for Apple, great Namibians out there. What message would you send to those Namibians so that they can come back home and contribute to the development of Namibia?
I think when you look around the world, you've got countries that were basically written off. Many of their people departed to go to green pastures.
Yes.
But, you know, I lived in the UK for 33 years. East or West, home is best. You will never be able to stay away from your country without that urge, that wishing to be there and to be able to excel there. It's brilliant that we've got Namibians that have gone to Silicon Valleys, that have gone to Singapore, to Japan, etc. But here is the home for which our liberation veterans have fought for. Those people are important to us and we need to look after them.
Yeah.
Our veterans are there in the villages, only recognized when they die. Our young people are now in foreign lands.
Yeah.
They occasionally come home. But the Namibia that we envisage is a Namibia that will require every single one with every little piece of skill that you have to come and build your own home. Yes, we heard about the myth of the Namibian home. That left a lot of people out.
Yeah.
We want to be so inclusive practically, not only in the term of the word, to make sure that we can bring about our people that has gone out to come and contribute to the development of this country.
Yeah.
This is going to be the green fields of Southern Africa or Sub-Saharan Africa. We've got the advantage of the minerals in this country, but there is no one supporting the young entrepreneurs in mining, the young entrepreneurs in manufacturing, the young entrepreneurs in agriculture, and even people looking in the artificial intelligence that we were talking about a while ago. When I went down to the fourth industrial revolution, I looked at these young people and I said, if I give each of you 10 million, how will you contribute to the economy of Namibia? And the young people stood back and said, thank God you are not asking us whether we've got our COVID injections. You are looking at what I can do to ensure that these young people can actually do something about Namibia, build their own country.
Yeah.
All those people out there, yes, make sure you come home, but you come home to invest in this country. Bring everybody that you can come, as long as they are not criminals. But remember, we've got our veterans of the liberation struggle in this country. We've got our young people in this country that are looking for jobs. We've got our elderly people advancing age that are getting 1.4 Namibian dollars, 1,400 Namibian dollars. Many of these people are looking after orphans, up to 7. And that money, as I heard from the villages, not something I'm making up, does not last even a week.
Yeah.
They are also paying for the school fees. And we've got schools in this country that children are being taught under the trees in tents. You go to Dama in Kavango, you go to Kachinakachi, children have got no accommodations. You go down to Ochimuhaka along the Kunene River, the children are being taught in the tents. You go to Etanga in the northwest of Kunene. The children, during the day is a classroom. At night is a bedroom, is a dormitory. They haven't got any decent privacy or anything like that. So we've got all these difficulties in this country. Taking over the next administration is not going to be easy. We've got so much corruption in almost every single institution of government that we will need to clean out to make sure that the people that are working in those institutions truly are servants of the people. And as we say in IPC, leaders don't eat first. And I will never do that. I'll still stay in Katutura until our young people have got a way of making ends meet. Now, accommodation, housing is the biggest problem. But we have got a program where we superimposed houses on every single informal settlement, where we'll have houses for people to rent and buy. And when you buy it, you can only sell it back to government in order for you to go and get another house in Ludwigsdorf.
Wow.
But we need to provide accommodation affordable to the people according to their needs as well.
Yeah.
And I practiced that out by building at my old location house where I still live, a flat with 2 bedrooms upstairs. And that's all we want. We want a basic thing where these young people can say, that is my home. Let's go home. The young people are not looking for becoming multimillionaires or whatever. They want decency. They want their dignity back. And that is what we need. We've got a dam full of water there near Swapo. We can make bricks and the railway travels there. And we can transport all those bricks all the way to Oshikango and give it to the regions around as well. We've got a lot of bricklayers and vocationally trained plumbers and electricians in this country. My flat was built by people who are bricklayers, not by experts or whatever. And I saw how they are working, and I told the foreman, you are such a great leader. If we can only have 2,000 of those leaders, we'll be able to build houses. Our army is in the camps at the moment. If we can take those brigadiers out and say, let's create platoons, work platoons, get the machinery out of the military, and then we'll clean up the land, and then we'll get everybody who's unemployed to come and build your nation. We will be able to create a fiscal income on this side because we will be paying these people, provided we cut out the middle person. We'll be able to create housing, create jobs for the people instantly that will kickstart our economy to start going up while we are reducing the income tax in order to allow foreign directives. If we can get over a period of time the tax to 20 or even to 18, then we'll create financial institutions in Namibia where the world will come. And that's good for Namibia because it will create jobs for our people. But as long as it's up there at 32, no one would want to come and invest in Namibia. At the same time, if there are no brown envelopes, then people will be able to trust us. There are people who've got principles that I don't have to pay in order to come and invest in your country. In addition to that, when people are talking about this oil and this green hydrogen and the negotiations, we need to make sure that we create a negotiation framework so that these people that we send to go and represent Namibia to negotiate these deals are actually representing the people of Namibia and not themselves. We need to have a tick box to say, here we will compromise, but here we won't compromise. We, at the moment, are talking about oil and gas, but we don't have a legal framework of how that is going to happen from the upstream, the midstream, and the downstream, including what local content are we going to have? When are we going to tell our people the local content in an oil industry is this much, get yourself ready? We need to get the young people involved. I was talking to some young people, say, sometimes you hear about things, but you don't go and investigate. But the most important thing that the Namibian people need to think about 2024 is not who is going to be the president. It's for them to exercise their democratic right and sacrifice one single 24 hours in your entire life. Do that in order to build a future for this country. Abraham was asked to sacrifice one of his sons in order to get something in the future. He was prepared to do that. All that we ask Namibians, especially the youth, it's your future. No one else can shape it for you. You'll shape it by making that cross on that day at the ballot box. And that is the only time you can say, I contributed to the making of Namibia. It's not Itula that will make Namibia. Itula will guide. Itula will lead. Above all, Itula will listen. I said a salary of 150,000 Namibians is too much for a president. A salary of 2.5 million is too much for a CEO. We'll have to look at that. I'll give my salary to a trust so that I can help others. I'm helping a lot of students, but I don't go about talking about them. But we will need to do something to make sure the young people of this country replicates what the young people in Zambia did as well.
Are we still rolling? Rolling? Okay. I was surprised to see that you still stay in your house in Katutura. Most people, because you're not a poor person. Most leaders would then move to fancy areas, big houses. Was this a strategic move so that you can relate to the people of Namibia, or this is just who you are?
I don't plan my life. I am the product of my environment. I'm not the product of my genes, neither my education, nor the wealth, minimal as it may be, that I am accumulating. When I was living in the United Kingdom, I had a big house with 5 bedrooms and a big yard. In fact, 2 tennis courts or 3 tennis courts. And we had upstairs and downstairs. When I came to Namibia, I was looking for a house. I went to Pioneers Park. I went to Ludwigsdorf. I could only find bricks, but I couldn't find a home. And I went down into my mom's house. I lived at my mom's house for 7 years in one room. And the boys lived in the other rooms as well. We've got 2 houses. People think we've got 1 house. I just preferred to go back into that room. And then I built this one. And I built it initially for a flat for my brother, myself, and my sister. And then they said, no, we are old enough. We don't want to live with you. After all, you are a leader. I think we will live and we'll live with us. They've been married already. They had their houses and said, we are not living with you then. And when I first went into Katutura, the dogs were barking. The neighbors were screaming. The Kambashu music was going on. I thought, oh dear, will I ever sleep here? Because in the UK where I was, you can't even hear a car. And you know what? You could have taken me out of Katutura, but you couldn't take Katutura out of me because I now sleep through all that noise. Last night, the people next door who's got a Kambashu where they sell alcohol, etc., were up until 2 o'clock making all the noise, but I still managed to get my sleep. So I did not go there as a political strategy. I only went home. And if there's any guilt in going home, then the guilt is you go back to your roots. I feel home where I live. Inside, yes, I make it decent, but I'm still having the neighbors I've grown up with. You know, love your neighbor, love yourself. Who are your neighbors? In politics, the neighbors are those people that we need to keep in contemplation whenever we conduct ourselves. Whether we conduct ourselves in terms of choosing where we want to live, whether we conduct ourselves in terms of accepting the mantle of leadership, we must bear in contemplation the impact our actions and deeds will have to our neighbor.
I would love to chat with you the whole day and listen to you speak. You are a wealth of wisdom and you sound and look like a person who is there for the people. My last question for you is the IPC ready to govern? Does the IPC now have structures, people that if you are elected tomorrow or when you are elected, you are able to govern effectively with proper accountability and transparency?
When IPC came into existence, nobody actually considered it to be able to survive the weathers of political existence for a long period of time, taking into consideration the many political parties that came up. When you look at the elections of the local government in 2020, the Swapo party scored 256,000 votes. IPC scored 89,000 votes. The PDM scored 36,000 votes. The LPM scored 35,000 votes. And when you look at the manner in which we organized ourselves, we came into existence from the grassroots. We established 11 leaders in each of the constituencies, and those leaders were from where we extracted 15 people to come to the founding convention. And it's from that founding convention that we went out after we actually accepted our constitution to recruit the people. The party was built from the grassroots. We firmly got ourselves near the ground before we start building the structures. That's why this party continues to survive the weathers of political attack. And we are conscious that one of our biggest principles is the rule of law. Rule of law, whatever we do. And because we are firm, we are not scared of taking on anything. We had councillors that did not follow the rule of law. And we had to take a decision between sticking to our principles and allowing somebody to violate the principles of law. And we even went into a by-election in Swakopmund, risking losing power. There is a lot of people, for example, approaching us wanting to share power, but they are not approaching us to share the duties of governance. IPC has put structures of self-governance in the party. We have got an inner cabinet of 4 people that meet on a regular basis. We've got a steering committee that meets every Monday. We've got all the 14 leaders that meet every Tuesday. All our constituency branches meet every Saturday, and every Sunday our branches meet as well. We've got a structure that communicates from the bottom to the top. At the moment, as I'm speaking, every morning when I come in here, I sit with our National General Secretary and then assess the party. and then before I go to my clinic. Now, for the past 3 years, I'm the only political party leader in the whole of Namibia who has not been paid a salary by the party. All the activities that I do it for the love of our people, and I do it to bring about change in our people. And I believe the change will come about when our people believe in it. It will be them that needs to change. We are ready to take on government because since the 16th of and honesty that will determine where Namibia goes. And that is inherent in the manner in which we govern IPC, and that is the manner in which we'll govern Namibia with absolute meritocracy and accountability to the voters.
Wow. Mr. President, I'm going to ask you quickly, before I ask you, cameras okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Quick questions, one-word answer. We just want to get to know you more. So one-word answer. So if you could spend one day with a president, who would it be? Can be a president dead or alive. Who would it be?
I think in the world of leadership, you will be hard-pressed to be or to try to be someone else. They became who they are because of their environment, because of the specific things that they needed to deal with during their time.
Okay.
I did not become who I am because I like Mahatma Gandhi or whether I like Barack Obama or whether I like Lenin. No, I became who I am because of the people of Namibia. The manner in which I behave is born out of Namibia. Yes, guidance may come from situations that other leaders dealt with, but those leaders dealt with those situations, perhaps akin to Namibia, in the manner that demanded in that area there. You can't be another person. You can only be what the people makes you to be.
All right. And another second question, or one-word answer as well. How would you best describe yourself? One-word answer. One word that can describe who you are.
Honest.
Honest.
And I've got an unquestionable love for my people and my country.
Wow. What is your favorite food to eat? Kapana?
Well, I think I just eat vegetables and meat, really. I'm not fancy. I don't have a favorite food. I went down to a village and I don't know what they were eating, but they were it's something green and they cooked the food. And I didn't say I don't eat that. And I ate that. I drink tea a lot. I drink tonic a lot, and I drink water a lot, and I don't touch alcohol.
Wow.
Because I need to be in command at all times. And only recently did I drink coffee because the traditional leaders were drinking coffee. So I go to the people and I'll eat what they are eating. So I can't say this is my favorite meal. It's too much pressure on the people. Oh, Dr. Itula is coming. He only eats this. He only drinks this. No.
Wow.
I will be able to interact with the people and eat what they are eating and be as simple as practically possible. I don't think that this body will be made up by anything fancy because it was made up by whatever it is. I remember speaking to an Italian professor who says that you must eat something from your country every year because your body demands it. So I don't have any fancy food. I eat everything that's put through.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. President. Yeah. Any message to the Namibian people?
I think one of the most important things is that we still don't know each other as Namibians. We unfortunately has got this demarcation by the international community as Namibia. We still exist as tribes, as ethnic groups, white and black. We cannot run away from that. But what I'm asking the Namibian people to do is to honestly think that what Namibia do we as a collective needs to establish so that we can exist and carve our way through this terrible world and stand high with our heads up amongst nations and to say truly, we are Namibians. We must go back to where we came from, the origins of our existence, and look at those heroes and heroines in our history that made us who we are. Let's look at those people who sacrificed for the independence of our country and ask ourselves, a dying freedom fighter, what was the last words and thoughts of his mind as he was breathing his last breath?
Wow.
Was he saying, for Namibia to live on, my blood soaks their future? Or was he saying, for Namibia to be destroyed? The former was his word, dying and sacrificing his last blood for us to live in harmony. Love your neighbor, love yourself, love your Namibia. Vote for the future and ensure that democracy, those who sacrifice, created for us, will exercise it to the betterment of all our people and also our neighbors in terms of our region, continent, and the globe as a whole. We are not an island.
Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you.
And thank you very much. Thank you very much for watching. He is a leader who's not going to use a couch as his bank. And I would encourage you, 2024, all of you, whoever you're voting for, go out and vote. Thank you very much for watching.
I'm so mad.